This video is brought to you by NordVPN. Head over to nordvpn.com/YBOC for a huge discount on a 2-year plan, plus 4 additional months free. And, it just really helps the show.
Hey there, nerds. I'm Dr. Jordan Breeding, and welcome to your Brain on Crack, the show hosted by a medically specious physician who hasn't also hosted Jeopardy, and the only show on Cracked considering selling Dr. Oz branded erection pills. Anyway, I've got 4 hours to kill, so let's diagnose. Look, movie characters are like us. They don't always make the best choices. Like how every character in the Saw franchise makes terrible decisions at any given point. But sometimes characters make decisions so terrible, they potentially doom the entire planet and all of humanity, and audiences just don't seem to notice or care because they're selfish, probably. So selfish. They probably don't value life, and maybe I should tie them to a seesaw and literally seesaw them in half if they don't. So in the original Spider-Man movie, the one that came out nearly 2 decades or roughly 3 Uncle Ben corpses ago, Uncle Ben, 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 Peter Parker is bitten by a genetically re-engineered spider while on a field trip to Columbia University. None of the teachers seem too concerned about this, presumably thanks to the liability erasing magic of permission slips. And speaking of Peter's teacher, why does he talk like that? Was he bitten by a radioactive Nicolas Cage?
What is going on? The next person who talks will fail this course. I kid you not.
Does he now have a superhuman inability to control his spending?
Have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you pissed blood?
Anyway, after passing out from a sweat-drenched bout with a sudden fever, Peter wakes up the next day to find he's suddenly jacked and doesn't need glasses anymore, not unlike every schlubby comedian who gets cast in a Marvel movie. Then Uncle Ben gets gunned down by a desperate crook who seemingly moonlights as a 90s alternative rock band frontman, and after ugly crying for a few minutes, Peter becomes Spider-Man, because with great power comes great box office returns. And sure, it's great that Peter risks his life to save others, but let's think about this from a big picture perspective. What would help people more? Swinging from building to building, ridiculing muggers, or, I don't know, telling somebody about the frickin' miracle spider? If one single spider bite has the power to provide free LASIK surgery and restructure genes until bodies become 60% more Van Damme, what else could that spider juice do? Cure cancer? AIDS? Male pattern baldness? I mean, it's worth a shot. But Peter selfishly doesn't tell anyone about what happened. And this is a problem because the researchers at Columbia aren't testing anything on humans. They're only studying spiders like a bunch of friggin' morons. We specifically learned that they have 14 other genetically enhanced spiders that could potentially do even more awesome stuff for mankind. And yet, for some reason, science nerd Peter Parker doesn't mention that he stumbled on what just might be the greatest scientific discovery in human history. Because why cure devastating illnesses when you can fist fight costume billionaires and perform superpowered swing dance routines? For most of the Back to the Future movies, Doc Brown is like that kid you grew up with who had all the cool video games but never let you play any of them. Like, he builds a time machine but doesn't want Marty to learn about his own future or make a few bucks gambling on sporting events or, I don't know, smother Baby Biff in his sleep or basically have any fun of any kind. Doc Brown's policy on abducting teenage girls in his car, knocking them unconscious, on the other hand, it's a little too relaxed, if you ask me. For 2.5 movies, Doc constantly freaks out over the slightest alterations to the timeline. He almost gets machine gunned to death next to a J.C. Penney because he doesn't want to change the course of events. But when it comes time to hatch a plan to escape the Old West in Part 3, Doc employs the age-old tactic of suddenly not giving a shit.
Iced tea?
With no gasoline to power the DeLorean, Doc concocts a crazy scheme that involves hijacking a train, leaving the passenger cars behind, and eventually destroying the engine car in order to push the DeLorean up to 88 miles an hour. And I mean, it works. Marty gets home and is totally safe, and he ultimately faced more danger from a random encounter with the bassist from the Red Hot Chili Peppers than literally traveling through time. But Doc's plan sure does screw with everybody else and also all of history.
I mean, everybody calls me Flea, but my real name is Michael.
Let me do the math that Doc didn't bother to do. There are 3 passenger cars on that train, and in the car we get to see inside, there are about 10 visible people. So let's say there are roughly 30 people on the train. That's 30 people who don't make it to their destination on time. And if upon arrival, each person was supposed to interact with, let's conservatively say, 5 people, that's 150 people whose futures have been altered that week alone. I mean, think about how many business deals, armed duels, sexual rendezvous, and armed duels following sexual rendezvous, and rendezvous for armed sexual duels were prevented by Doc's selfish actions.
Emmett Brown at your service.
And here's another problem. They destroyed the train. How long do you think it might take to get that line up and running again? Doc reads Marty the riot act for buying a magazine in an antique shop, but doesn't blink an eye when they completely shut down a major artery of transportation in the 1880s. Who knows what kind of crazy ripple effect that could have? Marty and Doc are lucky they didn't come back to a future where Biff owns a casino run by Jennifer's sex clones and the world is controlled by a half-lizard, half-Hitler robot king. And speaking of time travel...
Change back! Change back! I'm sorry!
In Bill and Ted's first excellent adventure, the tale that taught humanity the joys of learning as long as nobody tries to make you read some stupid shit in a book, 2 idiot high school kids used time travel to create the world's best history report and also set up elaborately choreographed stage lighting that nobody really mentions.
See, Genghis very much enjoys Twinkies.
The whole reason they get contacted by a future time traveler in the first place is because their objectively terrible band will one day write the music that brings peace and harmony to Earth. It's basically a reverse Nickelback scenario. So Bill and Ted travel back in time and abduct key figures from the past so they can pass high school and not have Ted get shipped to a military school in Alaska, which would have ended the band before they'd had a chance to save the world. But isn't that a terrible idea? Exposing ancient people to the modern world for a couple of days and then plopping them back in their own era would cause innumerable problems. But at least that was intentional. By Bill and Ted Face the Music, time is collapsing on itself and historical figures and places are getting blasted into the wrong eras. The movies wisely choose to mostly breeze past the implications of Abraham Lincoln and Joan of Arc needing about 2 minutes in a library to learn when and how they are murdered, or the near certainty that these figures will head back to their timelines carrying monstrous modern diseases like the Arby's meat sweats.
We have the meat.
But there is one horrifying problem the movie just straight up shows us. Thanks to Bill and Ted, all of human musical history is now based on the shitty faux glam rock of Weezer.
It's working!
I mean, think about it. In the first movie alone, Beethoven falls in love with garbage Bon Jovi-style rock music 200 years before it's actually invented, meaning that his own highly influential music will now bend towards living on a prayer rather than, something good like the Halo theme song. But that's just the tip of the iceberg because Face the Music culminates with Bill and Ted infinitely replicating themselves and traveling through all of time, handing out instruments and demanding every person in history jam along with what's ultimately a pretty mediocre rock song in the basic-ass key of C. They literally combined Mozart, Jimi Hendrix, Louis Armstrong, Ling Lun, a prehistoric drummer, and Kid Cudi, I guess, to create the world's greatest supergroup.
Can someone please tell me what the hell is happening?
And they can't come up with anything better than Bill and Ted ripping a dual harmonic guitar solo tailor-made for a porno set during an NFL tailgate party. This is what fixes and heals all of humanity in time, by the way. That means that the entirety of human existence is not only aware of this specific terrible genre, but it also quite literally was or will be the key to saving existence as we know it. Nobody's ever going to play anything else. All that incredible music from the past and future is now forever tainted with wailing guitar solos and not even Jimi Hendrix solos. He barely did anything in the finale so as not to detract from the 2 old white guys raised on Pantera. For shame, Bill and Ted.
And it worked.
The 1995 Casper movie is the profoundly disturbing story of a poltergeist crushing on a teen girl, made even creepier with the knowledge that even though he looks and sounds like a dead child, Casper is technically a dead man in his early 40s.
Casper, no!
Another detail you may have missed as a kid, Casper ruined his father's life. Like when Casper and Kat are digging through old newspaper clippings, we learn that Casper's father was declared legally insane and committed to an insane asylum after he claimed that he was haunted by the ghost of his dead son. And maybe we can't fully blame a dead kid for trying to reunite with his dad, but also maybe Casper should have learned a lesson and thought twice before haunting somebody else. But then again, maybe his haunting is justified because we also learn that Casper's father built a steampunk escape room basement containing a machine that could bring Casper back to the world of the living, seemingly powered by vials of Kool-Aid, or maybe Red Bull, or Possibly the blood of Richie Rich.
His face hurts. And where is his glasses?
In any case, Kat plans to use the last vial to necromance Casper back into his full Devon Sawa glory. But then, her dad gets drunk and accidentally kills himself. Welcome to children's movies, circa 1995.
What's it like to die?
To be totally fair, the construction crew that dug a giant hole directly in front of a bar entrance should probably shoulder at least some of that responsibility here. Then Kat's dad comes back as a ghost, so Kat says, "Sorry, young child who never got a chance. It's much more important that we bring back this much older man who will one day save the Earth from an alien invasion." She fires up the machine and it totally works, holy crap. And then they immediately rush off to host a Halloween party. They literally found a cure for death. I mean, the Lazarus machine wasn't powered by magic. It was a combination of chemistry and mechanical engineering that could somehow bring dead people back to life. At the very least, Kat and her dad have a huge ethical decision to weigh here. Like, shouldn't they tell somebody about this? Better yet, shouldn't they have told somebody about this before they blew their spectral wad and brought Pullman back? I mean, take that vial to some scientists and have them reverse engineer it. If one crazy dude in his basement could make it, surely the world's combined scientific prowess could create a replica that could bring back Einstein or Martin Luther King or Randy Quaid. Most importantly to them, they could easily bring back Pullman and Casper. It's not like there's a time limit on how long you can be a ghost before you disappear forever. Casper's been around for a long, long time. Just tell Pullman to wait a little bit and go haunt some co-eds or something, and then get some scientists on it, and boom, humanity is saved. Or, you know, bring your dad back to life immediately so you can have a chaperone to a Halloween party or whatever. Because, like, even having my dad haunting me would not stop me from going crazy and pouring drugs into the punch or something. Kathy, am I right? Drugs in the punch? Oh, hasn't been 4 hours.
All right, so here's the deal. We could talk about NordVPN and how it works in 60 countries and it's super secure and it's backed by a top cybersecurity firm. I could say that, or I could just show you how to actually use it in a way that you want to use it. So, in this video, we talked about Spider-Man, but the problem is that in America on Netflix, if I want to look up the old Spider-Man, there's no Spider-Man here except whatever this friggin' Vexed by Venom crap is. So, what I do if I have NordVPN is I quit out of Chrome, like fully quit out of Chrome. Then I open up NordVPN, and I'll pick a country that does have Spider-Man, like let's say Spain. So now I'm in Spain. And I open Chrome back up. So I go back to Netflix, which thinks I'm in España. And puedes mirar, is that what it is? View all the Spider-Mans, look. And look at that! Not only do you get the freaking like original Spider-Man, you get the Amazing Spider-Man if you hate yourself, and you get the new Marvel ones, Homecoming and Far From Home. Literally all the Spider-Mans. And you can just click on it, and then all of a sudden you're watching Tom Holland just have a blast. And that's literally all it takes. It's all you have to do. It's very simple to use, and it allows you to only subscribe to like one service rather than trying to get Disney Plus and Hulu and Netflix and all these disparate things. You can just find one service, you can pay for Netflix or something, and then you get NordVPN through us, ideally, and then you can watch freaking all the things. And there are tons and tons of articles and websites and stuff that will point out, hey, Spider-Man's not available on American Netflix, but it is available on Spanish Netflix. And best of all, it's a 30-day risk-free guarantee, which means if you don't like it, if you can't figure it out, if it's too hard for you, or if you're my mom, for example, that's okay. You can get all your money back after 30 days. So all you gotta do is go to nordvpn.com/YBOC, and then you get this freaking huge discount on a 2-year plan. Plus, you get 4 free months. So do it. Help me. Help yourself.